Welcome to the Dice Tower Summer Spectacular, featuring live plays, contests, and the Dice Tower Awards. We'd like to thank our sponsors and our special guests, and we hope that you enjoy.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Dice Tower Summer Spectacular 2022. It's just me right now, but it's going to be everybody as we continue. We'll be going today, tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday, and each day we'll be going from 9 a.m. each day is our start, and somewhere around 5 p.m. is when we're scheduled to finish. It could be shorter, could be longer. It's going to be a little bit shorter on Thursday, but there are many things coming up. I'll be talking about those in just a little bit in Board Game Breakfast. But a couple of things before we start. First, let's start with a contest. And folks, there's going to be a lot of contests over the Summer Spectacular. But the first one is right now from Pandasaurus Games. You can see in the background their new game here. We're going to be playing this during the Summer Spectacular. But we're talking about another game they're coming out with, which we just talked about in the news, called Nacho Pile, a game in which you're pulling chips out of a bag. So Nacho Pile. This, by the way, you can win this by emailing us at contest@dicetower.com, and in the subject line put the word nacho, and in the body answer the question, how many chips are on the front of the bag? And I can't spoil this question because I don't remember. There's at least one, or they wouldn't ask the question, right? But we don't know how many chips are in the front of this bag. But anyway, this is for folks in the USA only, this particular contest. Although, for those of you worldwide, stay tuned. Many of our contests will be all over the world. So go ahead and enter that contest. That's one thing. Another thing is, I want to do a shout out here to Dave Culling. You may have noticed recently, several years ago, well over a decade ago, Timothy Pinkham offered to write the Dice Tower theme song for us, and he did a great job. An orchestral theme. He also rewrote it as a jazz theme, which is most of what you hear if you watch the Dice Tower. Most of our shows have started with the jazz version, but the original version, which was on the Dice Tower podcast, was an orchestral theme. Well, recently, Dave Culling has been working with us, and he's been doing it in all different formats, and you've heard some of those. My favorite currently, he's done a lot of good ones. He's redid it to match the Board Game Breakfast theme in this show. He's also done the one for the Summer Spectacular overall thing. But the crowd surfing one, I really like it. It has like a surfing rock and roll feel to it. But it's all of the Dice Tower theme. And I just wanted to give a shout out. Dave Culling has done a fantastic job on these. Other than that, we have so much great stuff coming your way over this. In fact, you can see just in the corner here a player board for Mosaic, which is happening next. But we'll talk more about that in the future. Let's get started here with Board Game Breakfast. Here we go.
Hi, everybody.
Hello, we are Ryan and Bethany.
From Ryan and Bethany Board Game Reviews.
And today we're talking about prehistories from 25th century games. Basically, in this game, you are hunters who are going to go out and you're going to be hunting for these various animals. What you're actually hunting, though, is tiles. And those tiles you're going to bring back home to your cave, and you're going to paint them on the walls, aka your board. So you're gathering these tiles, you're putting on your board, trying to create different objectives, trying to fulfill different objectives. And they could be anything from collecting a big section of all, I don't know, woolly mammoths, or maybe a whole bunch of variety of different animals. Or you're trying to fulfill rows and columns, those kinds of things. Basically, there's a lot of different ways you can score. But what you're really trying to do is you are trying to race in this game. You are racing as fast as possible, trying to get rid of your tokens by fulfilling objectives.
We have talked before about how sometimes we'll play games with our youngest daughter, even though she can understand all the rules of the game, but she doesn't understand strategy. So she's more like a randomizer whenever we play. So I am the randomizer to this game because I just can't, do it. I'm enjoying it. I like it. I will definitely play it again. I'll definitely try, but for some reason, I just cannot, figure out how to get this game to work in my favor. Still a fun time.
There's a blind bidding aspect to this game. Basically, you're going to send out these hunting parties, which is your hand of cards, and you can send out a big giant party. But guess what? They're going to move a little bit slower. So that means you're going to go last in the turn order as you're drafting these tiles. Or you can send a really, really small hunting party that's going to go really, really lightning fast. That's going to be able to have first choice of all these animals. However, the small hunting party is not going to be able to take down those big, huge, legendary animals. They're going to be worth a lot of points and be able to fill up a lot of spots on your board. So you have to kind of weigh and balance whether you want a big hunting party, a small hunting party, how many tiles you're going to be able to get, how many tiles can you afford.
Yeah.
So there's a great balance there between the big and the small parties as you're drafting blindly to get all these tiles.
And it's really neat because in this game you're trying to get rid of things, right? That's how the game ends, is by getting rid of that last token instead of like a certain amount of points. So it's kind of nice. You play the game, there's no points. It's just a race to be able to do that first.
You guys, this is a unique take on tile playing games. It's got a cool theme that I hadn't seen before used in that way. I enjoyed it quite a bit.
If you want to hear more from us, you can find us on YouTube. We are Ryan and Bethany at Board Game Reviews. Everybody, this is Ryan and Bethany, hoping you have a happy, healthy breakfast.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Assalamu alaikum. In Imperial Settlers Roll and Write, I think this game came at a time ahead of its time when roll and writes used to be very simple. They used to be at a level of Gaunt on Clever when you were simply striking numbers out. And this game presented a whole Euro game in a roll and write format. This came before Hadrian's Wall was there. This came before Three Sisters was there. So it was a product ahead of its time, and now people are more accepting to more complex Euro games being built as roll and write games. I still think it's a fantastic game. But one of the problems with this game is that once you roll the dice and you have a bunch of resources, there is no real way of tracking that how many apples you had, how many wood you had, and how many resources, workers did you use on your current turn. That's why Portal Games has even released additional worker tracking sheets or resource tracking sheets that are available on Portal site as well as BGG file section called resource tracking sheets. So I do recommend that you take a printout of these and hand them over. So in each round, you can write down how many resources have you gathered. And then as you use those resources, that one of the workers has used 4 apples to do this. And in that way, actually, you can keep track of how many resources have you utilized and how many are pending. So that will make the gameplay much more easy. So look for that file on the BGG file section called the resource tracking sheet. That's it for me. Happy gaming.
All right, everyone. Today we're taking a look at a game from 20 years ago, and today's game is called The Game of Things. Now, it came out in 2015 as The Game of Nasty Things, and they also came out with a version based on the very popular TV show, which is entitled Schitt's Creek. But The Game of Things, it's a party game, and it's a pretty basic one. Everyone's going to write an answer down to a question. So it might say, things you shouldn't put in your mouth. And then everyone writes an answer down, and then everyone's trying to guess who wrote each answer. One person reads them, and you guess it. It's pretty basic, and it's okay. The thing about The Game of Things, and you can see why it was retitled The Game of Nasty Things, is the fact that The Game of Things asks specific questions that they know could be fairly innocuous depending on the group you're playing with. I actually prefer party games to do this, where if you want to play it with family, you can play it, and it's going to be whatever. Like things you shouldn't see on a billboard, things that are not good in breakfast cereal, whatever. But if you do want to play with people who want to go blue playing a board game, this game is definitely rolling out the carpet for that. It's fine. It's lasted now for 20 years. There are very good versions of it. The most versions, there's this picture here you see with the wooden box. That's the version I played. Not quite 20 years ago, but close. I definitely remember playing this game. It wasn't in 2002, but it was probably close, well, whenever I did the review. I guess I can tell you that. Or did I review this game? Things, reviews. I'm not seeing, I'm going to go look, see if I've even reviewed the game. I'm only seeing a few reviews. So all text reviews, because this is probably a text review. Yep, I reviewed it 17 years ago, in 2005. All right, so I said it did well, And I said it did not attain the status of great party games like Time's Up and Why Did the Chicken. Yes. Back then I put, don't worry about it. It didn't go over well in my groups enough where it was requested time and time again. And yes, a lot of people play this. It's fine, but I probably wouldn't play it again because I think there are better party games. But it's still around 20 years later. All right, well, anyway, that's a game from 20 years ago. You could probably pass this one by. Let's keep going.
This is a segment where we take a look at a board game based on an intellectual property, and I tell you if the IP and the mechanisms match. Today we're going to look at Justice League, The Axis of Villains. Let's take a look at how the game plays, and I'll tell you if they match
So
up.
the game is set up. You're going to have the little satellite here in the middle, and as it takes damage, you will flip this over. If all sides of the satellite ever get flipped over, then you will lose the game. On the turn, it's going to be very easy. You're going to roll both of these dice. Whatever you get will make a turn. So if you get this, then the villain, whatever number you roll, will move one spot. So in this case, the 6 would move up. If you rolled this one that has the 2 on it, then that guy would have moved 2 spots. If you moved on the Justice League, then the bad guys stop moving and you can start to take your turn. So what are you trying to do? So if you get somebody in these spots and you have one of your characters there, then you can fight them and do combat at the end of your turn. Because he's in the yellow place, I can roll the black die twice. There's only one included in the game. If he was in any other section, then I can only roll 1 die. I also have these cards that I can play, and they're going to do different stuff. So here, if I was in the red zone, I could roll 2 additional die if I wanted to play this. Or if I'm in the yellow, I could use this power, which you'll see corresponds here. If I was green, I could do this power. So
the IP and the mechanisms actually fit together okay. You're moving around the board and you're punching and you're kicking and you're defeating the bad guys, and each hero has an individualized power that kind of works with what they're doing. But the gameplay is what's going to hold this back. This is not a very good game. Now, for a mass market game, it isn't terrible. Let me be clear about that. I've played some mass market games that are wretched. This is probably not it. But that's because it borrows so heavily from other games like Castle Panic, and you're going around. The problem is they took that game and they made it worse and made almost everything rely on a dice roll, a single dice roll, and it's not very good. So mass market, not too bad. Compared to other children games that are out there, not very good. And there are better Justice League games, and there are a lot better Marvel games on the market because Marvel's the hot thing right now. This is a pass for me unless you're a huge, huge Justice League fan and you just want to collect everything.
All right, folks. Today we're talking about the Summer Spectacular. So I want to tell you a couple things here about the Summer Spectacular. First of all, I mentioned it's going from Monday to Thursday. On Thursday, there's a dead stop on the Dice Tower. You won't see anything after the Summer Spectacular till the following Tuesday because we need to take a couple days off. We have not taken many days off since Dice Tower East and Summer Spectacular, but we want to come back strong, and you'll see there'll be even more things next week. We'll be playing games live and things like that. So let's talk about the Summer Spectacular. We're starting off here with Board Game Breakfast. And then the first game we're playing, like I said already, is Mosaic here. Glenn Drover's here. He's going to be teaching us the game. We got special guests coming in for the Summer Spectacular. We have Rod Phelps, who's in the area. Well, kind of in the area. He's like 90 minutes from us. And he and I play a lot of games together. And Brian Drake is in town, and his wife Carla. So you'll see them in games. Later on today, we'll be playing Marvel Dice Throne, Museum Suspects, The Great British Baking Show, First Rat, and Spiel des Jahres winner, which we definitely knew when we made this schedule, as far as you know, Cascadia. And when we got a couple other top 10 lists in here. Tomorrow, we have, tomorrow, our Marble Championship of the year, where one marble will be retired. And Clank Catacombs, the new Clank, Snakes, Ven, Star Wars Villainous, the new Villainous, Bag of Chips, Skate Summer, which I already mentioned, Disney Sorcerer's Arena, Cat in the Box. Wednesday, Crowd Surfing will be in the morning. Quirky Circuits, Dig Your Way Out, Gutenberg, Pinpoint, 10 Penny Parks, Good Critters, and Wormholes. Again, these are all games that we'll be playing. There's also going to be top 10 lists scattered. Thursday, we'll be playing Moonrakers with the brand new expansion. And the big things about Thursday are Dice Tower Awards. We'll be announcing the winners of those at 1 o'clock on Thursday. And at 2 o'clock, folks, I cannot emphasize this enough, we have 23 companies are making announcements about games or things that are happening with them. Let me tell you who those 23 companies are, because this is exciting. These are things that you have not heard anywhere else yet. Arcane Wonders, Horrible Games, Pencil First Games, Forbidden Games, Unexpected Games, Pegasus Games, something about Core Quest. I guess that one's not okay, it doesn't matter. Portal Games, Grana, Matago, Smirk and Dagger, Gale Force 9, Plaid Hat, Gray Fox, Nauvoo, Rebel Studio, Rock Manor Games, an announcement from Frank West, Osprey Games, WizKid, CMON, Direwolf, and CGE. There's some really good stuff there that I am very excited about. You guys know I'm not really, a big Cold of the Future fan, but many of these things that are being announced are coming out this year, and I'm super excited about them. So all that stuff is coming this week. I hope you enjoy it. Stay tuned to Summer Spectacular. Like I said, there are contests. So like we're doing a contest right now, which you can scroll back to the beginning of this. But there are 4 more contests happening today. Tomorrow there are like 7 contests. There are 4 on Wednesday and only 2 on Thursday. That's still a ton of contests, and you can enter them all. Alrighty, let's keep going with breakfast.
Hey there everyone, it's Jan the Board Game Librarian, flipping some pages and pushing some cubes with my segment from the page to the table, where I pair books and board games together that share a common theme. This week I'm going to be looking at 2-time Pulitzer Prize winner Colson Whitehead and Harlem Shuffle. This is one we just did with book club at work, and we have Harlem in the 1960s. Our main character, Carney, is a furniture salesman by day and kind of a thief at night. So this is part historical fiction and part heist novel. Kind of an interesting combo. It's in 3 different parts, this book, and it goes through 3 different ages in Harlem. But, we get a ton of New York City, some things that are going on in the city at that time period, and just a really flavorful book of Harlem in the 1960s. And so, a game that takes place in the 1960s is Ticket to Ride New York. This is from Days of Wonder, 2 to 4 players, ages 8 and up, 10 to 15 minutes. So a really brisk Ticket to Ride, the first one of these mini games that they did, and I find them very charming. They're really pocket-sized, great to bring along on trips to breweries that Matt and I like to go to, and just, it's Ticket to Ride in a really short nutshell. I taught it to my mom, who was a huge New York fan, and the artwork, the taxis, just really super fun and very nostalgic, I think, for folks who love this kind of time period and New York in general. That is all this week, friends. Happy breakfast!
All right, folks, we just came back from Dice Tower East, and unfortunately, I could not find a good spot to put it last week or this week. But next week, I'm going to do a video on the games that were checked out the most from Dice Tower East. But I want to talk a little bit about some of the stuff about the checkout process and some of the things that we noticed. So, for example, we have about, well, I shouldn't say about, I know there was 2,274 games in the library, something like that. It was about 2,300 games. We added 2 shelves of kids games, which we hadn't before, and always right before a convention, I'll throw a ton of games in the library that I might not normally put in the library, but that are newer games. We then, after the convention, will decide whether they get added or not. For example, I played several of the games that we just added to the library at the last second, and they're not going back in the library. That's just how that works. But I do look at library stats and library numbers. And so next week, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to be I'm not trying to tease people with that information, right? But I will say the #1 checked out game is getting played at some point during the Summer Spectacular. But anyhow, we'll give that information out. But the way our process works is people just come in, they check a game out, and at the Dice Tower East, we have a very strong push, and I'll never apologize for this, that 1 game gets checked out per table. Like, you're not allowed to take a game and just sit it at your table and say, when we're done with this game, we'll play the next one. First of all, everything's in one very simple space that you can just go and, It's not that hard to walk back to the library to check out another game, but it's just polite to everybody else. If I want to play Beyond the Sun, which is currently in a hotness at BGG for no apparent reason, as stated by our stat, but if I want to play that and it's just sitting on your table, no one's playing it because you want to finish playing Golem first, that's just a waste, right? And so we discourage that, and it's worked out pretty well. It's so many different games got played. I want to say there was 5,000 plus, we'll have exact numbers because Chris kept track of all that. 5,000 plus games were checked out. Most games were checked out. You know, there's a wide variety. I think the number one game was checked out 30 times. And realize it's only over 5 days, and Sunday's kind of half a day, so 4.5 days. It's only over that period of time that these games can get checked out. So a game can't be particularly long. A game might be very, very hot and checked out fewer times because each time it's checked out, it's 4 hours or whatever you might have. But it's interesting to me to see games that aren't checked out, because I look at games that aren't checked out and then I have to make the call as to whether they'll stay in the Dice Tower library or not. A very interesting one, I'll tell you, that was never checked out, for example, was Blood Rage. That kind of blew my mind. I mean, Ankh was checked out a lot. I think Rising Sun was checked out once. But it's interesting to me to see games that are very popular, and sometimes there's reasons for that because people go to a con to play new stuff. There's always a heavy tilt towards new games being checked out of our library. There's also, you know, if you know how to play a game or it's a game that you can only play at conventions, those games might get checked out too. And if you have the big game at home or whatever, and it's sometimes easier to do that, or you might bring it yourself, although I'm not even sure I saw Blood Rage being played. But I'm not trying to like say anything negative about Blood Rage, I just find that sort of thing fascinating. There's lots of other games that were super hot, burning stars when they came out. Content creators everywhere were talking about it. Everyone said this is our darling, and that lasts for like, and I'm not exaggerating, a month or less sometimes. Those games go into the library and they're going to go out because in a few years no one cares about them. Now some games I'll keep in the library despite no one or maybe one person checking them out, because I think it's good to have a robust library, and I do like keeping some older classic games in the library. And we also have a few games in the library that we call personal checkouts, which means I want to check it out and teach it to people. And since it's my library, or there's a couple games in there for Z and Mike and different people where we have games that we like to play with people. We like to teach people, like, hey, have you ever played this old game? So we'll keep those in the library because we'll check them out and play with other people. But like I said, we have more stats coming about the checkouts. But to me, it's kind of a fascinating piece of information to see what games people check out. Games sometimes get checked out more because there's a publisher there selling that game, so people will go check out the library to play it to see if they then want to go buy it from the publisher. You'll definitely see things like that happening. Sometimes at the Dice Tower East, we're skewed because some games will get checked out more because people know that we've upgraded them. We put little top 10 lists in the books, like we'll say 10 games for 6 players, 10 great games to play only at a convention. And those top 10 lists work because we see the games on those do tend to get checked out. There's very few of those lists where none of the games on a game on one of those lists doesn't get checked out. And I think that's also useful when you browse the library. Now, I am going to do a video. I got a lot of questions at the con where people came in and said, how do you organize this library? And I've talked about it a bit in the past, but I'm going to do a video sometime at some point explaining how I organize my library, because I think, well, for me, that's interesting. It might not be interesting for you. But I just want to talk about the checkout process because this is the first real piece of data we've had in a long time. We have some data from the cruise. We don't get any data from the retreat. We have some data from Dice Tower West, but Dice Tower East, I have complete control over the whole system. So this sort of thing is very fascinating to me, and I'm curious how it will affect my fixing and building up the library over the next several months. But anyway, that's what I'm thinking about today.
Happy breakfast, everyone. Today I'm here to talk to you about Deckdetective. This is a sort of series of not quite escape room style games from DV Games. Now, this has a really interesting mechanic in it, in the fact that you have cards that have information on them, but you must discard some of that information throughout the course of the game to actually play others. The way this works is every bit of information on the cards in this box, well, they're going to have a number to them. They cannot be played until that number of cards has been discarded. Now, it roughly equates to how good the information is, but it's not entirely always the case. And it means you're reading your small bits of information that you can't share with the others around the table, and you're like, well, that doesn't sound very useful. But what if it does sound useful to one of your teammates around the table, because maybe they've got a bit of information that this would make sense of? Maybe you discard it and no one sees it. Maybe you do play it even though you're not sure. And on your turn, it means you've got a good choice. I could help the team by discarding something, but what if it's good information? And while I don't think You Can Cheat Death, that's this one, is necessarily the best in this series, it's still a solid little experience. It took us around 40 minutes with 4 players. It's a fun little game where you play this information, you talk with the people around the table, and then at the end of the day you answer some questions and see if you got it right. It's kind of not an escape room, it's a story-ish sort of detective thing you're playing through. Super short and enjoyable. Anyway, that's Detective, and enjoy the rest of your breakfast.
All right, today I'm talking about Thor, Love and Thunder, which is the 4th Thor movie. It's still weird to me that Thor has gotten 4 movies. And Hawkeye's gotten how many? How many? Come on now. But he did have a good TV show. All right, so Thor 1 I thought was a fine movie. Thor 2 I didn't like as much, but there's no Marvel movie that I actively dislike other than the Eternals, which is trash. But the 3rd movie, Thor Ragnarok, is one of my favorites of all the Marvel movies. It just turned Thor around. I thought it was fantastic. The combination of Thor and Hulk, the humor, the comedy, the pathos, it just was a great combination. And the director, whose name I always mispronounce, Taika Waititi. Sorry. I like his movies a lot, for the most part. And I like his acting, usually. He wasn't very good in the Nice Guy or whatever that was called, the other guy, whatever. But I like his stuff, so I was very excited about this one. I went into this one, and I'll tell you straight out that my rating of it is a 7. There's a lot of parts of it that I really enjoyed. The overly comedic tone does not bother me, and in fact, my kids were amused by it. There's one little joke they do with, I'm trying to be oblique here for people who haven't seen it, but it is a sound effect that I know some people were annoyed by, but I laughed every time it happened because that was amusing to me. And my kids particularly liked the ending because there were kids in this movie and they liked what happened with the kids at the end. They thought that was fantastic. So they all rank it higher than me. I liked it. The reason I don't give it a higher review, a higher rating, again, a 7 out of 10 is a good thing, is just because at the end the stakes never felt tremendous. The story was good. It was a nice standalone movie per se. I mean, there's the bigger, wider universe around it, but it just doesn't stand out as much. But there were some things I do want to say that I liked a lot. The villain, Christian Bale, is one of my favorite of all the villains in the MCU, and my biggest regret in this movie was he was not in it enough. He's in it, but I mean, he is fantastic. There's a part where he is telling stories to some children, which is just a great scene and just showed a side of him that I really liked. Natalie Portman as Thor's counterpart in this one, she was fine. Her story arc was fine. I didn't think she was amazing, but I didn't think she was bad. And the action sequences, there's a whole middle section of the movie which maybe could have been taken out, but I was slightly amused about. And there was also, I mean, it felt a little bit like Star Wars Phantom Menace, where they're going to this god world type thing, and you're like, ooh, look at all these cool aliens, that kind of setting. But overall, it was good. I always know how much I like a Marvel movie if I go back and see it the next day. Usually I go see it with somebody and I'll be like, I want to go see it again if I really like it. I did not do that with this one. But I still enjoyed it. I'll still watch it again. It was fun. It was interesting. It's not in the top 10 of the Marvel movies that I've seen, but I had a lot of fun with it, and I don't mind all the extra humor that they threw in it. So that's Thor: Love and Thunder. I will say this. The very end sequence of this, that I would watch a TV show on. I really would. But you'll have to see what I'm talking about. That I was like, ooh, I could watch that part for a while. And if that leads into the next Thor movie, I would be very interested in that. Anyway, that's what I'm reviewing this week.
Hi, this is Ambi from Board Game Blitz, and I've been talking a lot about children's game recently, but I also mentioned before that I made a book for them called Board Game Day, and it's finally here on Kickstarter now, as you're watching this, but this is a prototype of Board Game Day, the book. Basically, Board Game Day is a rhyming children's book for toddlers about hosting a board game day. And one thing that's really cool about it is that the illustrations have actual board games in them and the characters are playing actual real board games. So I've been reading it to my kids and they like pointing out the games that they recognize because they actually recognize a lot of these games. And I'm not sure if I should feel proud that they recognize so many games or ashamed that I've already gotten them so many games and they're not even 3 yet. But anyway, they are excited about seeing games that they know. And you, watching here, obviously know a lot of board games, so like how many games can you recognize from here? It might be a little tricky for you if you're not that familiar with children's games, but there are a lot of great children's games out there, and these are just a few of them. So which of these do you recognize and which are your favorites? But while you're trying to guess all the games, I wanted to leave you with a special poem that I made in the style of Board Game Day, specifically for Board Game Breakfast. It's not actually in this book, I'm just looking here like I'm reading it, but I'm not. I've been making Board Game Day. It's this book that's on display. While you're watching this fun show, see which of these games you know. My time is up, so now I'll say, happy breakfast! Check out Board Game Day!
Hi, I'm Jordan. This is a segment where I talk about a game that's great to play on a weeknight. This is the Guild of Merchant Explorers. Yes, it sounds like they took the game, they couldn't come up with a title and they put it through like a Euro game name generator, and this is what they came up with. And frankly, the game inside the box looks like they did that too. But even though it has a forgettable look, a forgettable name, this is a game that I think should be anything but forgettable. I hope people don't overlook it because of how drab and beige and boring it looks. This game has the same engine as a kind of a meteor roll and write or flip and write game. You're going to flip over a card and do the action. Everybody does that at the same time, kind of a bingo style. And so you're going to flip it over and you put some cubes on your board. You've got this hex board, this map, and you're trying to connect different parts of the board and connect different things in order to discover villages, get to different towers, and connect trade routes and things like that. But what makes this game really, really sing and really interesting is you have individual player actions that only you have, and periodically throughout the game, once per round, you're going to get one of these new actions and then you get to use it. Usually on your turn you're putting 1 to 2 cubes down, but when you have this special action, you're putting 4 to 6 cubes down in different ways across the board. Maybe it's across water spaces, maybe it's spaces adjacent to different things. You get to just kind of put these cubes everywhere around the board. And it just kind of gives you all those little brain hits that are just really nice. You get to do all these cool things, but then also as you're playing the game, you're also getting these point chips, and you're getting a little bit of points, a lot of points, a little bit of points, a lot of points. You're just getting points all the time, and it just feels really, really good all the time because you're going to use these cool bonus actions and then get these points, and it just works back and forth. This is probably one of my favorites so far this year. I really enjoy this one. I hope people don't overlook it because of how it looks, because the gameplay is that good. Guild of Merchant Explorers. I'm Jordan. Thanks.
That's it for Board Game Breakfast, but that's not it. We got more coming. In fact, don't turn off now, because in just a second, we're going to be going to the top 10 games rated 1,000 or lower from Amanda. And then when she's done with that, there will be, I don't know, 10, 15-minute break, and then we're coming back at 10 o'clock. Then we have a link to all of our feeds from one to the other, where we'll be playing Mosaic Live, which, in fact, we need to finish setting up, so I need to end breakfast right now. Folks, this is just the beginning of the Summer Spectacular. I still have all my energy left, so that's a good thing. We'll see you in a few minutes. Until then, I'm Tom Vassell, and this has been Board Game Breakfast.
Thanks for watching Board Game Breakfast. Tune in each week for your daily dose of gaming goodness with Tom Vassell and all the gang. Until next time, I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching Board Game Breakfast, a Dice Tower production.
Hey there, my name is Amanda Polk. I hope you're having a spectacular summer so far, and I am here to share with you my top 10 games rated 1,000 or lower on Board Game Geek. So these are just 10 games that I really enjoy that haven't cracked that top 1,000, but I think are really worth giving a play. So, first up, number 10! So my number 10 is, maybe this is cheating a little bit, but it is Golem. This is a game, it just came out last year. Maybe it's going to continue to climb up those charts and break into the triple digits. But this is just a beautiful brain burner with almost no luck. It is entirely strategy and tracks on tracks on tracks. If you like tracks, you'll like Golem. After that is, let's see, it's going to be right here. Yeah, right there, because I don't have it on hand right now, but is this delightful little card game called Cafe. Someone introduced me to this one at Dice Tower West, and I am so thankful for it. It is a little, you draft cards, you lay them down, you build your engine. You're just trying to grow and roast and sell some coffee. It's a fun little strategic game that you can carry around in your bag. Really just a delightful, charming little game. Did you play Tetris when you were a kid? Is that a game that you loved and you wish that you could play it without a television or a NES original console? Well, you're in luck, because this game, for me at least, has totally recreated the experience of playing Tetris. Ariel, it's ranked down in the 3000s, but this is Tetris on paper, and I know there's lots of polyomino games out there, lots of things that are Tetris-y, but this is the one for me that really just makes it, it's turning pieces, dropping them down, filling things in, no like nudging around, but it's just like Tetris in the way the polyominoes come together. Now, this one, Dr. Esker's Notebook, is the one ranked the lowest of all of them on this list. This is in the 11,000s, probably because it's an escape room type game. So you play it once and you give it to somebody else, and it's also from a really small publisher, Plankton Games. So it didn't get a wide release, and the people who did play it only played it once, probably. But this is one that I just think, if you like Unlock or the Exit games, you're gonna love this. And I thought the puzzles in this game are just really good, and there were no points at which it felt like you had to do any real guesswork. It was very much just work out the puzzles and the clues. It feels meaty, and it doesn't feel like there's oh, there's 3 dots on that person's hat, so one of the numbers is 3, right? Like sometimes these games will make you feel like you just kind of take random bits of information and try smushing it together, but this is really, I just thought the puzzles were great. Dr. Esker's Notebook. There's also a Son of Esker, if you enjoyed it. The next game is Genotype. This is a lightweight worker placement game that is about Mendel and pea plants and genetics, and there is a mechanism in here where you take dice to simulate the combination of genes coming from 2 different parent plants, and the way that that's done, where you roll the dice and you use a Punnett square, so it's just like high school biology class, to figure out where the dice go and what the actual outcomes of this cross of two plants is going to be. And you are trying to create plants with the sets of phenotypes, that you're looking for. It's just like, you're both like using and learning about some basic biological and genetic principles in what is actually a very lightweight worker placement game. I think that the theme is great. I think it's a lot of fun, and you might accidentally learn something. So that's Genotype. So I like dice. I like rolling dice. I like using dice. And I especially like lots of different kinds of dice. And that's why I think Unearthed is a great game. This is a game where you are using your fistful of dice, and you have, you've got your D6, but you've also got a D8 and a D4. You're deciding which die to roll to place on cards. So you're bidding on cards, not bidding. You're trying to win cards by getting them up to a certain threshold, at which point they go to the person who's got the highest total number on the card. You want to win the cards and get these little tokens and build patterns, but really at its core, you're rolling dice, trying to have the most number on a thing. And I just think it's a fun little game. I think it is nominally about your dwarves digging tunnels. I don't know. You're rolling dice, you're putting them on cards. There is some light strategy, but just lots of fun, and a good one, I think, for playing with the kids. So this game is Chai. This is a delightful, very sweet and beautiful game. The components are really nice. I don't even have the deluxe version. The deluxe is amazing, but even the standard version is really nice. Some of those nice little chunky resin tiles like Azul. And this is a game where you are running a tea shop, and you're collecting ingredients and filling orders, and buying tea leaves from the neighboring tea shop if you don't have them. I find this game is just really sweet and really nice, and certainly worth giving a shot. So that is Chai. My number 3 is a game that you don't have your own pieces. You're all moving the same pieces. And it's a fairly simple, streamlined game, but I really like the puzzle of it, and it's also just downright beautiful. And this game is Space Park. This is a game where there are 3 rocket ships that everyone is moving, using them to collect resources, and then use those resources to purchase cards that are worth points, and it's a race to get the most points. And it gets a little puzzly in there when you're trying to think through what options do I want to leave open for the next player, and what options are going to work best for me and sort of my plan to get the most points. So that is Space Park, number 3. Okay, this next game may be a little bit of a cheat. It, like Golem, also just came out last year, and I think people are pretty into it and excited about it. I am shocked that it has not yet cracked the top 1,000, and this is Maglev Metro. This is a game that is, it's all about pickup and delivery. You're getting passengers and taking them to the train stations they want to get to, and when you get them there, you get to use them to develop your train system and build your own actions to make them stronger, more powerful. It's a great game, and now there are 4 new maps coming out, which I'm really excited to get. So it's going to have even more variability in the gameplay. So that is Maglev Metro, coming to a top 1,000 near you, I am sure. Okay, my number 1 game rated 1,000 or lower. This game comes in currently at 1,158. It is more than a game to me. It is a cultural experience, and this game is Castel. This is another one, like my number 10, Golem, where there's not a ton of luck. There's a lot of like puzzly thinkiness. It can be a real brain burner. It's also one you don't want to play with anybody that struggles with analysis paralysis. But I adore this game, and because of this game, I've spent hours watching Castellers on YouTube. You should try it sometime after the Summer Spectacular, but you should try it sometime. It's really cool. So this is a game where you are a troop of Castellers, you're going around, you're recruiting, adding more people to your troop, and then you're building these amazing towers of people trying to build the tallest, most spectacular tower to really wow the audiences and win the awards. I am shocked that more people aren't really excited about this game like I am. Maybe you'll try it and be really excited about it too. But that is my number one game rated 1,000 or lower, Castell. So I'd love to hear from you. What are the games that you think are really amazing that are 1,000 or less? Drop me a note in the comments and I will talk to you next time. Bye.
Thank you.